definitely sparking a lot of debate. President Trump just recently announced on Truth Social of plans to propose extending to a 50-year mortgage. He posted this meme on Truth Social, Great American Presidents, with President Roosevelt, 30-year mortgage, and himself with 50-year mortgage. This was then confirmed by the U.S. Director of Federal Housing Finance Agency, William Pulte. And he then goes on and says, thanks to President Trump, we are indeed working on the 50-year mortgage, a complete game changer. I don't know how to feel about it. It seems to me, I mean, I'm 29, plan hopefully to buy a home. I'm telling myself I'll have one by 32. The idea right now is just to pay off the debt that I do have. And honestly, if I could go back in time, I wish I would have just like never even gotten a credit card. So I feel like the idea of just extending monthly payments means I'm just going to be basically a debt slave for life. A lot of other people also feel this way. Look at some of these comments on X over here. And then again, it just kind of repeating what we just talked about. President Donald Trump opposed extending mortgages to 50 years to lower monthly payments for younger buyers amid rising home prices and interest rates, drawing parallels to Franklin D. Roosevelt's 30-year loan initiative during the Great Depression. The housing finance director confirmed the administration is exploring changes to guidelines for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which backed half of U.S. mortgages. While the plan could reduce monthly payments by about 11% on a typical loan, experts note it would nearly double total interest paid over the long term. That's, oh my gosh, dude. It's just basically debt slaves for life, honestly. So, and then here's that same tweet I just read to you guys. Leading report now is also posting about this, saying the same thing, attempting to make it easier for young people to buy homes. I really don't feel like that's the way. It doesn't make me feel any better, honestly. Buckle up. This is going to make the 2008 mortgage crisis look like the good old days. Interesting thoughts on that. Humans will exist as bonds for big banks and private equity funds, paying interest from cradle to grave. I don't think this is a good idea. You're only going to produce more debt and interest slaves. Want to fix the housing issue, build a lot more homes and lower interest rates, incentivize the home building. Market will do the rest and make homes affordable. 50 years versus 30 years is a lot more interest. So yeah, it seems like a lot of people are shocked. A lot of people feel like it just makes them debt slaves. You wanted cheaper groceries. You got 50-year mortgages instead. Trump's solution to affordability is debt that outlives you. But hey, maybe there's a supportive argument for this that I'm just not aware of. I mean, of course, you're going to be indebted to a lot more interest, but yeah, I guess you could buy a house in the short term if that's something that you'd be fine with. And it seems like that's kind of what a lot of people do with their credit cards. Regardless, their solution is to put Americans in debt bondage for over half a lifetime, rather than removing foreigners from our lands and from the demand side of the housing market. 50-year mortgage, LMAO. So here's another one. I'll read this last one. 50-year mortgage is a joke, going to cost more for the loan duration risk than you're going to pay double in interest costs alone. Basically 10% reduction in monthly payments, but goes on for 20 extra years. This seems pretty brutal. So yeah, definitely a lot of differing opinions on it. And then what I also wanted to say is that there was that recent article. I think that there was a lady on X who also was previously mentioning it, Tiffany, and it's kind of unrelated, but it's just kind of adding onto all of the burden that people feel. And it recently Trump allowed, I believe, private equity now. This is a bit unrelated, but it just kind of reminds me of this because Trump previously signed an executive order that's now going to allow private equity to dip into your 401k plan. And when did he announce that? Let's see. It's becoming now easier for private equity to dip into 401ks because of Trump's executive order. Trump will allow, here, let me go ahead and share this. This came out in August. Trump will allow you to make dangerous moves in your 401k, including adding crypto and private and allowing private equity bonds. What can go wrong? Well, the main problem is the majority of investments in the assets above should probably be avoided by most Americans, whether or not they're available in their 401k. most Americans should be investing in boring old index and index like stock, bond, and real estate bond funds. Lots of investments in the categories listed above are designed to be sold, not bought. How will the executive order provide access? It's going to loosen up regulations on fiduciaries that own companies and practices that offer 401ks. The reason, oh, now I remember why I really wanted to bring this up specifically. And let me just go ahead and share my screen so that way you guys can also see that. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because it actually kind of adds together. I mean, we're seeing stories of, there it is. That's kind of what I wanted to share. We're seeing stories of, private equity like Blackstone, for example, that's buying up houses like crazy. I mean, they're not even just buying up one or two houses. They're actually buying entire neighborhoods, especially I think in Arizona and New Mexico. They have huge issues with Blackstone just going in and buying all of these single family homes. So on top of the fact that we have places like Blackstone now that are just dipping into all of these single family homes, on top of that, now their private equity is allowed to be dipping into your 401k, which means they have access to a lot more capital now. All of these private equity firms that I think are just like the devil incarnate have access to a lot more capital. And with all of that capital, they're just going to be able to do more of what they're already doing, which in Blackstone's case would be buying up more single family homes and exacerbating the cost of purchasing a home. Because at the end of the day, if it comes down to somebody like me versus a private equity firm that's going to immediately just pay all cash with a much higher offer, I'm never going to be able to compete against that. So it just, to me, I feel like, oh gosh, I feel like everything's just like becoming more and more of a recipe for a disaster. Um, and I think that's what's really concerning here. So I guess we'll just see kind of how things unfold moving forward. And then here in this article, it said, is the policy of the United States that every American preparing for retirement should have access to funds that includes investment in alternative assets. With the relevant plan, fiduciary determines that such access provides an appropriate opportunity for plan participants to enhance the net risk adjusted returns on their assets. So that's some boring language that I find interesting right now just to read about. And that's kind of where they talk about a lot. If you guys know Ray Dalio, he's a really interesting guy, and he put together a video on YouTube, and it's called the next world power. And he basically talks about the average lifespan of an empire, not of a country, but of that country's empire on average is about 250 years. And it reaches a point that as an empire starts to decline, they accumulate so much debt. And as the debt accumulates, obviously they have a difficult time paying back the debt. And then eventually it just becomes difficult to pay the interest on that debt alone. And what we notice is that this typically happens in 250-year cycles. I mean, the United States has its 249th birthday. It's coming up on its 250, and we're just seeing things become more and more expensive. And on top of that, the national debt is becoming higher and higher and higher. And it doesn't seem like any of our politicians actually give a damn about the national debt, aside from one, which is Republican Congressman Thomas Massie. And of course, that's the exact politician that Trump currently wants to unseat. So there's the national debt tab. If anybody's interested in getting a little bit just like stressed out by looking at it, here it is right there on the top left. U.S. national debt, $38 trillion. It's just like a ridiculous number. The reason I'm bringing that up is because one marker of a healthy economy is actually your debt to GDP ratio. And they say that for a healthy economy, the debt to GDP ratio should be around 90%. The United States right now, it says it's at 120.97. I see that in the top left box right there, right below the thing that says Doge clock now. And since none of our politicians, aside from Thomas Massie, really cares about something like that, it seems like, I don't know, just doesn't seem like the long-term things are kind of going in the right direction. At least one has to go down, the other has to go up a lot more. Anyways, I hope you guys found that interesting. I did. Might be not like a super crazy fun topic to talk about, but I was reading up on it anyways and thought you guys might want to hear as well. If you did find this video interesting, would appreciate giving me a subscribe by clicking below, liking this video, and otherwise I'll